We're handling sexual harassment in the workplace all wrong, starting with the fact that we don't even recognize when it's happening.
Consider this. One study showed that when surveyed, about 25% of women reported being sexually harassed at work. Sounds bad, right? Well, get this. When the interviewers started asking the women more specific questions, like if they'd been touched inappropriately, the number almost doubled.
And even when people do recognize sexual harassment when it's happening, most are still afraid to report it. In fact, only 25% of people who experience harassment at work will report it to a supervisor, often because they don't want to be seen as difficult. And as few as 2% of those people actually file a formal complaint.
That without an official report, people are more likely to ignore the problem. Take this week's episode of Good Trouble. My character Callie tries to convince her boss, Judge Wilson, to speak out against a known predator. And although he does hold similar concerns, he's hesitant to act because nobody has filed an official complaint.
As far as I know, no complaints have been filed.
If it's happening, she can file a complaint on her own.
And lose a prestigious clerkship that she's worked very hard to get.
My character, Rebecca, also grapples with the decision to speak out. Her fear of tarnishing her family's reputation leads her to question if saying something is the right choice.
And there's another possible reason that victims are so reluctant to report workplace sexual harassment. Some official harassment procedures actually put the company on the side of the accused harasser.
In fact, this can sometimes give companies a perverse incentive not to believe people who come forward. So when somebody asks a question like,
what if someone's not directly involved but has knowledge of a perpetrator's past actions? If he reoffends, is that person, especially if they're in a position of power, guilty of willful blindness?
The answer is yes. Yes, they are. If people in power ignore sexual harassment complaints and make victims feel unheard, this problem will persist.
So how do we fix this? While sexual harassment training is a good start, especially if people take it seriously, it can't end there. A couple of days of training isn't the only solution to fixing a deeply ingrained problem in our culture.
First of all, we need way more women in positions of power. Lots of women feel more comfortable reporting harassment when they see themselves represented in leadership and know they have a fellow woman they can talk to.
And secondly, if you're in a position of power, show your employees that you take sexual harassment policy seriously. If the CEO is pulling a Michael Scott while the company is discussing their sexual harassment policy, you have a problem.
We also need to have proportional consequences. For example, some people will hesitate to come forward if they know their complaint could immediately get someone fired. Sometimes they just rather know it won't happen again. Which is why companies should examine the full spectrum of consequences, from conversations to legal action.
We need to create a culture where it is extremely clear that victims won't face backlash, that their complaints will be taken seriously, and that harassers will be dealt with fairly. Share this video if you think we need to change the way we deal with sexual harassment in the workplace.